When I was looking for a title for the show, it was quickly obvious for me that there can't be like one word or single phrase for the show, also because there's too many themes in it, and also to not give too much of an interpretation beforehand. So I came up with this way of titling that I sometimes use for small paintings, also to make the title not too prominent and important, and so that's to call it untitled, and then in brackets there's something like a small description. And in this case, I put the time scale in the brackets, so it's from 2001 to 2020. It's very selected, and also to develop. Actually, I try to develop some kind of narrative also for the show. When I grew up, there was a retrospective by Francis Bacon in Stuttgart in the Staatsgalerie. And for me, this was the first time I realized that painting can do much more than just be a representation of something. So it's not an illustration, but can convey something, an atmosphere, feelings, energy just by itself, by the energy of the brush strokes. And the organization of the canvas, and so I think this was the first time I began to think myself of becoming a painter. Maybe not even this, but just to be more interested in painting. Before that, I was always drawing and also painting a little bit, but it was more like an exercise in being precise, in doing something really realistic. And so this show by Francis Bacon was an important milestone for me. After Francis Bacon, there were quite some artists that influenced me, especially expressive artists like Soutine, for example. And then later I made really a turn about 100% and got really very interested in Mondrian. And also other hard edge painters like Barnett Newman. And so what interested me with them was the fact that they used these techniques of abstraction also to create a non-space, so like that the painting is really a flat surface and becomes an object of its own. But I also always felt that in a way it didn't succeed, because it's immediately it opens up, it becomes a space. Also with Mondrian, the grids, they are in front of the colors, or the colors are in front of the grid. So there's always a space. And I was interested in using these techniques to actually create space. So that's how I got to the first paintings in the show that are in the first larger space with the window grids. So where you have exactly this kind of structure and these abstract techniques to create and to build a space. Later, I became also very interested in photography. So especially Jeff Wall always played a major role for me. is also in the way he stages a photograph. So that because he's also, I mean, he's referencing painting and brings it to photography, and in a way it's the same approach. So he makes tableaus like 19th century history painting, and so I was interested also in his way of building up a narrative that is not explaining too much, but is more presented like the possibility of a narrative for the viewer. So what he's also actually he's talking about this in I read about this in an interview with him, where he says that the images they don't have a narration because there's no time in them. But they have they bring the possibility of a narration, and that's what happens in the viewer. So the viewer creates his own story. He brings with what he brings his own experiences to the image. So in my case, to the painting, and actually creates his own narrative. Yeah, like when the space in the painting has multiple ways of interpretation. So that, for example, if you look through a grid and what you see behind the grid could be an opening, it could be a sky, it could be a wall, or maybe it's just color, and maybe it's just an abstract, actually an abstract painting. You can't be sure where they are situated in the space, and so I like this ambiguity of the space because also it brings you. First of all, it brings you back to painting itself, so to the material and that it's actually a flat surface. So especially like in these two paintings in the Mexican window, there's also the element of time coming in, because in most cases I think an image doesn't really have this element of time incorporated, except for the time of the creation, so the duration of the process of making the painting, which in some sense is also encapsulated in the painting. But in this case, as in some others, like Sequence, for example, Sequence Couple, this painting, there's an element of time because you have two different views, two different moments in this, obviously the same view. It's the same view, but two different moments in time. So there's a change between two images, and in Sequence Couple, it's the two moments are encapsulated in one painting, and it's an interesting paradox actually to try to incorporate time into painting, because it's so strange to the concept. I think the quietness of my paintings is because there's not much going on, so there's nothing really happening. There's no story in this sense, and also there's not all these small elements that make up a story. So the whole the whole environment of the painting is very reduced, and this makes for this quietness and stillness of the paintings. So when I start a painting, I usually it starts with photographs. I make photographs when I'm in the streets or walking around, just snapshots of scenes or people or objects that interest me, and from these photographs, which you can also, you can see in the show. We installed some tables with archive material for my paintings. It's this is like the base. I use elements of different photographs and combine these to create an image. But it's a very classic, or I don't know, not classic, but it's a very analog procedure, because I don't make sketches with Photoshop, or I don't even make actually sketches like drawings and watercolors. But I start directly on the canvas with usually like an element, like a figure or with a space, and then I create this space for this figure, and I think about what is the relationship, what happens between the different elements, and what do I want to convey. And so this is then a dialogue that starts to go on with the canvas, between the canvas and me. So I put something on the canvas, and then the canvas speaks back, and I have to react on what I see. And this goes on. There's moments where I erase parts. Where even maybe the figure that was the most important part in the painting disappears to make place for something else, and so it's a continuous and long process, usually for months, until there is this moment where I feel that nothing is to be done anymore. It's like crystallized, and then it also becomes something else that it's not. It's I don't know. It's like removed from me. I think life and death seems like a grand statement. I think I'm more interested in what makes us human, and what relationships we have with our environment, and so also people or humans are not objects for me. I think they're always subject, and so it's obvious that also when we see images of people, we immediately we identify. So we look at humans very differently than at objects or landscapes or anything. I don't know. People are probably still as crazy and delusional as they always were. So the only thing that changed is the environment that we created and to which we have to adapt. No, I don't have. I don't know what the general audience feels or experiences in front of the paintings. I I hope that people can relate to it, and I always like when people create their own stories around them. So it's always interesting to hear interpretations that have not much to do with what I was thinking about when doing the paintings. So I hope that they are really open. They are an open invitation to have your own thoughts. And if this succeeds, I mean, I'm really happy about it. Yeah, I don't know. I don't use a smartphone. I don't use a smartphone because, first because I don't want to, because I feel I'm afraid that I wouldn't be as concentrated as I'm without a smartphone, and so I'm protecting myself against checking my emails all the time, and so I can completely focus when I'm in the studio. Also, I don't like this idea of having a little spy in my pocket who always knows where I am every second of the day. So I prefer to stay without. I think it was always there and always played a role. It just changed its role quite a bit because obviously with photography there was not the need to represent or illustrate anymore, and but at the same time, I mean, in this medium you can talk about pretty much everything that you could talk about in other media. So it's just in a different way, and I mean, painting tends to be a little bit, how do you say, it tends to look at itself as a medium, so that painting always reflects the history of painting and what it means to put paint on a canvas, and what it means to also to represent things. But it's always on another level with other media, but also all the other media, no medium is on the same, actually on the same, really on the same level, or doesn't speak about the same things. But in general, it always, I mean, it still relates to people, to an audience. It relates to our contemporary world, and you can still, I think, talk about a lot of things with it. And in the end, if it's a lot of fun to do. The notion of solitude, I always think more about my people being alone, so they're not lonely, but they're alone. So because they are isolated in their environments, and so this has something to do with being close to yourself, actually. So these moments of being alone, they allow to have an introspection and to learn more about yourself and think, actually start to think and not only to react. And so down the road, I don't know. I first of all, I will finish a disc of electronic music that I I will hopefully publish very soon. And then I think I might continue to work on the idea of how to introduce time as a factor into the paintings. Maybe not only as two moments of time, but to find some other way to talk about this in painting. That would be interesting.